Hello, hello. It's business as usual, folks, and glad to see you tuning in for the second ever episode. First few seconds when I listened to the first one, I thought to myself, oh God, it's early in the morning, and I sounded like it. And even a couple people that reviewed the first episode was like, yeah, it took you a few minutes to really feel like you were getting going. So hopefully I'm starting with more energy today and enthusiasm. I got a good agenda of things to talk through, of life updates, also an article for us to think through, and all sorts of stuff. But let's start with our priorities straight. Dear God, thank you so much for all that you provide, all that you do. Lord God, I pray today is a good episode. I pray this week is a good week. God, I pray that you are giving us the energy and strength that we need to be your hands and feet on the earth, Lord. I'm just so thankful for so many reasons, in spite of all sorts of flaws that I have. And Lord God, I just, let's pray, let's have a good time in your name. So recording this, it's actually Tuesday. Last week I did it on Monday, but hold on, I'm adjusting the music volume in this office. I've got Sonos speakers in this little office that work really well. Just want to turn down the volume. It is almost 6:40 right now. And this is kind of the time when I can make this happen. Any other time would be unpredictable. And I'm definitely have found myself to be more of an early riser. In fact, actually, sounds crazy as even in high school. And I would just be so tired at the end of the day that I would want to go to sleep. I would wake up crazy early in the morning, like 4 a.m. or so, to work on assignments for school that day. There are many times I definitely prescribed to the well-known phrase, if you were a slacker in school, for if it's due today, you do it today. So I'm recording it Tuesday morning. The date is August 4th. Instead of Monday, I'm going to try and make it Monday so these release on Wednesdays. This will just be a day off. But we had this past weekend, my son turned 4 years old. That's my oldest son. So my wife had a whole planned agenda for this day that I thought was too much. We've never taken him to a movie theater. So I thought, hey, what would be a great idea? Toy Story 5. Let's take him out to just the movie. That should be it for the day. Like, why do we have to do any more than that? Well, she had a whole day planned, and I was like, well, hey, it's your plan. You do what you want. I'm along for the ride, but it turned out to be a really good day for sure. We started at this, there's this indoor place locally that has inflatable bounce houses inside of the place, and also other kids' areas. So it's honestly a steal if you think about it. You pay I think it was $13 for a 2-hour session for a kid to just go bonkers in an indoor place like that. So I don't know. We had a good time there. And also, as a young dad, I'm definitely a young dad, 31 years old, but there were other dads in there in the morning, 9 to 11 in the morning, but my wife said only one other dad actually got in the bounce houses with anyone else. There were maybe 7 to 8 families there in the morning with all their number of kids, and it was just none of the dads were getting in there or really getting active or anything like that. I'm just, it's like, is this weird that I'm in the bounce house with the kids? But I'm more so it's weird that they're not at the bounce houses. Come on, we want to play with kids, play with our kids, be active with them. But anyway, started there and then went over to a mall here in town, food court, Chick-fil-A session. And then also at the mall is a Build-A-Bear shop. I've never been really to a Build-A-Bear, and there's some weird parts about it to me, but they have this deal where for whatever age your kid is, that is the cost of the bear. So $4 bear that we ended up spending like $15 for, because it's a plain bear that has like it's my birthday on the paws. Yeah, paws is the correct term. But we added my wife was originally thinking adding a Jessie outfit from Toy Story 5. But I was like, first of all, this is for my son. And secondly, that Jessie outfit's like $22 or more, $25. So let's, without being that direct, I just named other options and we went with one that was a t-shirt and sunglasses for like $11. So as a dad, you don't realize some of the things you shop for. Like I'm shopping for clothing for a teddy bear that my son's buying. Some of that's really dumb, but whatever. So we get a Build-A-Bear though for him. Place weirds me out a little bit because I don't know. It just I thought I got very like, existential about this place. Where I'm like, hold on a second. So, because the whole process, you take this bear that hasn't been filled yet, and they stick a tube in this bear in this whole cylinder of, the fluff, and then they fill up the bear with how dense the kid wants it, And I get that's why they do that, but I'm also like, okay, wait a second. So the bear, they just shove a pipe inside him, and then you have the cylinder with all of the, innards of the bear just floating around the guts of the bear, and then fills up in the teddy bear. And then I just like, okay, so when because especially in connection to Toy Story, like, okay, in a Toy Story scenario, when is this bear alive? And wife actually had a pretty good answer. Whenever it's officially sewn up is when the bear comes to life. It's like, okay, that sounds a little more peaceful. But at the same time, it's just like, oh, wow, this factory of, just making these stuffed animals and guts flying around and, just, it's like, no one else is probably thinking this way, but this is where my brain goes. Like just the, wow. All right. Anyways, so then we take him to Toy Story 5, the movie. Just like all the other Toy Stories, it's high quality and good. And actually, in my opinion, the animation of this Toy Story film is pretty nice. It's like very visually captivating in a different way than I've kind of experienced from other cartoons. And they do like 2 or 3 different types of animation along with it that's much more cartoony, which is kind of nice change of pace from the typical Pixar design model. But I thought it was pretty good. There were certainly parts of it where it was like, I was talking to another dad about this because after the Toy Story 5 film, like we had some families and one of them had 3 boys. So they hung out with my 4-year-old, but just talking to that dad about details of the movie. And there were just parts about it that seemed a little underdeveloped or like, really, this is how this lands. Like they start with this very dramatic scene of a bunch of these Buzz Lightyears, and it's a ever-growing like plot point in the film, and then right at the end, it doesn't really end up being that epic or interesting. Like it was very thrown together at the end. So it's like, okay. But they did a good job managing the screen time thing. That's the whole thing they attacked is, how kids are not socializing or playing like they used to, and they're just in front of screens the whole time. Most of the film is definitely like, hey, screens are a big problem. And I would say more so, screens are a big problem because parents are not managing screen time like they should. Like, for instance, for our house, we are not going to get our kids an iPad, which is a total counterpoint against, this whole movie where one of the daughters essentially left with herself without friends because she doesn't have this magic iPad. And part of this iPad is like truly magic. Like, it hacks into a RoboVac in the house that it has no technological association with for, something. It's like, what? How is it? Okay. So is this like an AI iPad that's like can take over things? And then like how, I don't know. There are lots of details where if you think about it too much, it like doesn't make sense. But anyways, but I liked that they didn't end with screen time as just completely evil. They ended with this theme of, hey, screen time's not inherently bad, and it can be a really useful thing to connect people, but at the same time, it can be super toxic. I think they balanced that pretty well in the film. But yeah, then after that, for birthday plans, had a little birthday party, pizza, ice cream. We got way too much ice cream, and we had probably like a pizza and a half left of the 5 Domino pizzas. But no, it was honestly like a pretty good turnout. I was very happy this one dad came with 3 boys because that really helped Levi have a fun time during the party. 3 boys that are all like, they actually have 4 boys. The 4th one was at home with mom because he was born 11 days ago at the party. So, but the 3 other boys, it was something like a 6'4" and 2.5 spread or something. So they got a crazy house. But he and his wife wanted to have lots of kids because they came from big families as well. So they were totally game up for that. But yes, that was a success. I felt like that day was really good. Wife did a great job. But as a consequence, Owen, our 1.5-year-old second son, we have 2 boys. He didn't really get much of a nap throughout the day. He took short spurts, like on car rides, but didn't really have much of a nap. So yeah, he was very much, there's something with none of you who are dads, there's something called being overtired, where literally you can, the kid will be so physically tired that they have such a hard time getting themselves to slow down and be comfortable to sleep through the whole night. And so that was definitely the case. I also have this mug here. I had some emergency vitamin C this morning because our house is going through a decent bit of illness. I've avoided it, thankfully. Or maybe it's just going to be delayed coming toward me. But all of the other kids seem to be dealing with it on some level. And so our 1.5-year-old, my wife Danielle, suspects that that's what happened. So yeah, that first Saturday night, I was like, basically the 1.5-year-old slept with me, and a decent bit of the night slept like on top of me, because that's when he felt comfortable to not cry, and scream. So that was a long night. And my wife didn't really sleep comfortably as well because of all that. So Sunday we were like super tired getting through it. It was kind of like a, post-recovery day on some level, because like I didn't work out on Sundays, and I usually do that. We didn't go to church. We just watched church. So we got through Sunday, and then Sunday night was kind of the same thing, but Danielle took the brunt of it. But I was definitely still like recovering with sleep. So all of that led to why I'm recording Tuesday morning. So, but no, Levi had a very good 4-year-old birthday party. That's the name of my oldest son. So, okay. I don't really know how to transition this. This is why people have ads, I guess. But I did want to talk about an article. We'll talk about articles here and there about, what's going on in the world. And this one is about this is from the Wall Street Journal, the rise of $1 million companies with just one employee. In my work, bookkeeping, CFO services, accounting, AI is very much a talking point, just like with any other company, honestly, and any other workplace, where, it's just about every day, if not once a week, where AI is being discussed in some conversation. So this article is interesting, where basically they highlight some people, one guy in particular, where he launched a company at the end of December last year. And he's apparently already got 10,000 paying customers on this platform, and he's on track to bring in something like $10 million this year in revenues. So it's just like, what a astronomical growth. But beyond that, he doesn't have any employees, and I don't think he intends to hire any employees. So there's going to be this growing trend that has already been tracked. So in this article, they highlight a data point for new business formations, where just in the past year or so, we see a spike. We'll have it shown here in the corner. We see this spike from like 8,500 new business formations to just an astronomical jump of over 12,000 or more. Looks like on a month-to-month basis is where this graph is going. So more and more people are making LLCs and businesses. But the percentage of folks that are creating new businesses that are more so solopreneur ventures is at an all-time high as well. And so they highlight this guy, Ben Broca. It's a company where he's offering AI tools to entrepreneurs, which, man, our world is going to be filled with all these peddlers of AI tools, of like how it can help you, and it's already been that way. But basically, this guy, let's see what this says. Artificial intelligence tools answer Broca's emails, help write and debug code, field requests from customers, sign up new subscribers, grant refunds when issues arise. And so it's basically doing all of these different details about his work, where essentially customer support, coding, marketing, and administrative work are all done by AI tools instead of a human being. Which for me, on how I've implemented AI, the big one for us is Claude in the accounting world. I have yet to really make it to where it's like these AI henchmen and women that, if AI has a gender, that are like doing things for us on a regular basis, like actual team members doing tasks and fulfilling things. So I've used it more so very much as like a thinking tool for me. Not thinking for me, but basically taking information, distilling it, helping me think through what possibilities or next steps should be for some client I'm working on or something with the business or all that kind of stuff. It's helped me, I'll talk about this later, but it's helped me figure out like 2 new service lines and how to put together the value proposition for those service lines. So, very helpful. So, I had some guy yesterday I was doing a one-on-one networking meeting with, and he was like, well, it was a gal. It was like, what are your thoughts on or ethics or moral views of AI with, your work? And I was like, moral views. Well, it's not inherently evil, that's for sure. I mean, it could go down a lot of nefarious routes, which is why so many people are super worried about it taking jobs and, robot empires taking over the world that we created. But as far as I'm concerned, you just have to deal with it. Like, you can't avoid this as something that, like, you can't include in your business. If you do, well, you're just going to be behind all these other people that are going to sign up to use this thing. And so, is it replacing accounting on a grand scale? I would say no. I mean, any of the layoffs and different things like that, or dramatic hiring things, are all from these big corporate companies, right? As far as us for hiring, we've kind of had a shakeup of what our team looks like. I had to fire a head bookkeeper person, and then I tried to hire a replacement, and in less than a month, I had to kick her out. I could talk about that later, but we're not replacing them. We're choosing to use associate bookkeepers. So we brought on 2 of them yesterday. So it's really interesting that this article is about, like, hey, not hiring any employees and, being able to generate income, quite a bit of income, honestly. But, I think for Broca, this guy, I think there's a lot of it where it's like, he's starting with some advantages. For instance, I looked up his LinkedIn, and I think this is like the 6th, 7th business that he's created in the last 10 years. So it's like, okay, this guy's a serial entrepreneur that's really been around the block here, versus myself that's been around for 3.5 years. And then beyond, so he's got this pool of people that he can start very quickly with. He's figured out marketing for himself, all that kind of stuff. He feels like a solo guy anyways, And beyond that, something in the article also said is that he has raised $30 million from investors. And so it's like, okay, well, I mean, for the normal layman people here that are local small business owners that aren't going to get funding like that on any level, it's like, okay, well, you're really helping yourself there, buddy. I would have, even $1 million would dramatically change what we're able to do here. But it highlighted some decent risks, though, this article, where, like, for one thing, apparently this guy, he was losing money for the first few months. So this has nothing to do with profitability, but he was just running on a growth mode where Broca said he was losing money on many customers' accounts while paying to access Anthropic's Claude to run his clients' requests. That AI company, as well as others, charges based on usage. So what does that mean? That means, wait a second, I don't know all the fine-tooth details here, but it seems to me, wait a second, you've got AI agents that are going to do this work for you, that at the same time, it was not making the money that maybe, like, human team members would be fulfilling for you. But apparently it's gotten better because he's using open source AI models from China, so that they can have all this data instead of American companies. That's another thing too. It's like, we can get all pent up about, like, oh, what's going to happen to people's information, and there's no privacy, and, everything's at risk being hacked and stuff. And my accounting IT friends, I'm not being frivolous with the information, let's put it this way, but I'm also trying to be very understanding of the reality that, like, tech companies have been doing this, like, all the time. They are always trying to find ways to use your data and information for ads and other informative information. So it's business as usual, folks. Like, so we can't, if we get pent up on that issue, then we're going to become hermits. and just completely isolate ourselves from any kind of technology or life, or get cut off on the grid, which is a dream for many people, actually. But one of the other risks, I think, that's a very good business problem that we got to wrestle with. If there's all these solopreneur people that have these companies and AI tools are using them, is if it's easy for one entrepreneur to launch an AI-assisted business, copying them can be easy too, which is true. I mean, this is one of the core tenets of one of my favorite marketing books of all time, Purple Cow by Seth Godin. Big premise is there is a sea of all sorts of people out there doing work. So if we are not doing our best to try and make sure that we are truly remarkable on some level with the work that we provide versus anyone else, then we're going to have a tough time really standing out in the market. And so for these folks, you know, if it sounds like what's going to happen is in small business, there's just going to be more and more and more options out there for what kind of service you could choose. Just kind of like in bookkeeping, honestly. I mean, if you go to any side hustle websites of like 22 different side hustles you could start tomorrow, bookkeeping's probably on the list. Because it's just, you don't need a certification, and you just, you know, do some little training tools online and then just start saying, hey, I'll track your stuff, you know, and get clients. But there's all sorts of problems with being a solo shop. And I would argue, even if there are a bunch of AI tools, like at the end of the day, it's just you running this thing. And to the evidence of this guy, where even though he's bringing in 7 figures with annual sales, he still has all these freaking costs that he's trying to figure out. And also this Ben guy, he's like jumping from new thing to new thing every 2 years or so. So I know nothing about the guy, but if somebody's jumping from new thing to new thing every 2 years, just like for hiring, if somebody's jumping every 2 or 3 years between jobs, that's like, okay, well, what's going on here? Like, why can't you find solid footing? Same thing with this guy, with his businesses. Like, he may have all wonderful reasons for why he's doing that, and I'm assuming and insinuating, but I don't know. I think there's a little bit of it's a little bit of dramatization here, but I think it's a huge point, though, that with me running a small business, and maybe folks that are in business for themselves listening to this, we always need to remember we're going to have competition everywhere. And our job is to try and make sure that we are as competitive on a regular basis as possible. So, you know, like for instance, our move with this company, we are choosing not to utilize people from, you know, outsourced or offshore for accounting services. One, because it's super hit and miss on how good it is. 2, especially the kinds of people we deal with, they still feel a lot of discomfort with this and probably always will. And finally, the third thing is, you know, I think we can get not as cost-effective, but similarly cost-effective help from these associate bookkeepers, where it's basically, I've used the analogy a couple times of like in Major League Baseball, you've got the farm system of AA, AAA teams. In Tulsa, we've got I think it's just a AA team in Tulsa for the Los Angeles Dodgers. But you've got this farm system of all these athletes that want to be in the major leagues. And so they sign up to, you know, make minimal earnings working in these different teams in the hopes that they will one day be elevated to be in the big leagues and manage their own list of clients. Or, you know, that's in our case, manage their own list of clients. So that is how I see our future, where we will be able to have this group of associates that we are training to basically go from nothing to something. On being quality bookkeepers and, accountant folks in our team, so that I can talk about this later, but in a field that is only getting older, because CPAs are dying off or retiring, and there are less and less new candidates that are studying accounting. There's going to be this gap of, who's really good in the middle. So a lot of reasons why I'm actually very excited for how things are going and like the industry I'm in and really committing. I signed up for at least 5 years with this thing, and this is going to be like a 10-year plan or more, of being in this company. And I'm 3.5 years in. So, fun things. I'm very fortunate, blessed to be in, but, we need to know that, hey, there's going to be a lot of these people, these solopreneur people that are bringing in money, but one of the cons as well with solopreneur businesses is it's just that guy. So let's say something wrong does happen with the AI tools, but the guy's off for 2 weeks. Well, one, I guess you never truly disconnect is part of the problem, which is the reason why I could never get into kind of like aggressive investing, day trading. But secondly, you can't lean on a team around you. And man, I got a team with these 2 people, associates we brought on. We now have 13 people. 10, what is it? I just counted this up yesterday. I think it's 10 full-time, 9 full-time employees and 4 part-time people. But yeah, man, this team's awesome. Like, I've built such a great group, and thank the Lord, they've led people to finding us on job posts. I mean, most of these people are very random that have come through. But like now, again, we do the books. The official count's 122 companies right now we do the books for. And I'm not doing as many client meetings myself. I still definitely meet with clients myself, but I have another colleague that's doing a lot of them. Still doing all the sales things. But I mean, very much a lot of my time is on, working on the business stuff. And boy, this is going to be funny. Someone's here super early. It's 7:10. And I know this is Karen, who is super early getting into the office. Hello. Recording a podcast. I was supposed to, but that didn't happen. All right. I have dedicated people on this team. I talked a little bit about, what's happened since the last podcast, but there's been quite a lot, actually. And this is honestly not uncommon for most of my weeks. But basically, I nailed down value propositions for 2 new service offerings for our company. Before I really share a bunch of details about it, I need to have some people really review it, give their approval, opinions, all that kind of stuff, especially the partners I'm working with in order to try and deliver these service offerings. So that's really cool. Finally nailed that down. That took some weeks to really figure that out with my times, the available time I had. But another thing is I'm starting to get real frustrated at golf. My last 3 outings or times practicing have just been very frustrating, where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but like nothing's working here. And then the one I will hit it straight and really good, and it's like, well, why the hell can't I do that all the time? So this is the aggravation that just every golfer just accepts, which just seems really annoying to me. Like, wow. So it's just constant. You're constantly frustrated? Really? So and what's so crazy about all this, I went out and played golf about 2 weeks ago, And I technically, this is not a hole in one, but I caught a hole in one. So I'm on it's like 140 yard par 3. First tee shot I hit goes straight in the water. So this is why it's technically not a hole in one. But the next tee shot, I hit it, and it goes straight towards the hole, and there's a bunker behind the green. And so we just see the ball disappear. And so I'm like, oh man, I must have hit it too far. And so I went into the bunker, So I don't think anything of it. I walk over there and I try to walk around all these like bunker and behind the green, and like there's no ball. I don't see it. And so but they start getting to putting, and they see this big divot like into the hole, and they find a ball. And so they're looking at me and they're like, hey, I think you got a hole in one. So it's like the most anticlimactic celebratory hole in one. And honestly, afterwards, I'm just like, I don't feel like I deserve this hole in one. Because if, I shot like over 100 that day. For people in golf, no, that's, not a good score. And so, yeah, getting a little frustrated, but actually today I'm hanging out with a guy, that's my operations manager's husband. He's going to work with me a little bit on like some coaching. And then tomorrow night, before we do a monthly company event around golf at like a golf simulator place, I'm going to hang out with the owner of that place, and he's going to work with me as well. So maybe this week will be a very helpful transformation on my game. But been frustrated at golf. So I talked a little bit about AI with accounting. We have actually been trying out a AI tool software. It's an AI native accounting platform called Digits. You could show examples online about what that looks like. It looks very snazzy. And, the guy that we worked with has been super helpful and communicative. But even still, we've just found that it's just not ready for the kind of accounting work that we want it to fulfill for us. And if you're curious, I can explain more about what that means. In fact, any of you watching this podcast, you can reach out. I mean, Google me, find a way to contact me. You can figure it out. But anyways, it's just not ready for the kind of detail that we want to get into with our work. So we're dropping that. And we've talked to another AI native accounting platform. There's like 4 of them out there right now that are prominent-ish. So we talked to another one last week, and we're going to have another meeting probably next week. That was like a second demo, but I wouldn't be surprising if we really give it a shot in October. The reason why I didn't start with them is because I was already talking to Digits. This other one's called Kick. I was already talking to Digits and working with them, and then this Kick guy came on, talked with us, and he was a little pushy salesperson and wanted us to like put down something like, I don't know, I think it was like $5-6 grand or something like that right at the bat, as like a 90-day trial. So, and that helps us get like really attentive training, I guess, with our team members on stuff. So it was just like, okay, before I throw down that money, I've already been talking to someone else. And so I'm now coming back, and it wouldn't be surprising if we do that. So, but yeah, went through that kind of decision making last week. In our virtual networking group that I help lead as the education chair, meaning I am in charge of like what the main meat of the topics are every week. And the leaders afterwards were discussing together, and we came up with basically a main KPI, key performance indicator, basically a main figure that as the group we are going to aspire to be really good at, one of the best at in this networking organization, and that is guests invited. Because anyone who's familiar with networking or building groups knows that if you invite guests a lot, some of those guests turn into members, and more of those members turn into capable humans that are part of the group and really grow not only the size of your little group, but also the influence of the group. Just more people know about it. And if they have a positive influence with it, then again, more of a positive influence. So anyways, we figured that out last Tuesday, and our leader, president of this chapter, is going to tell everybody that's what it is. So, but some other things too that's been interesting. I've been in more creative conversations with clients recently. I've got a dentist that we've been working with where basically last week I've been thinking through things where he wants to sell his practice, but I've been thinking through like, okay, what does he want to do after his practice sells? And so he's invited me into that, and I will probably have a very long-term relationship with this guy, which is fun. Then I've got a gal who has multiple retail spots, and she wants to sell those and go into another retail store. And so she's invited me to think through creatively how that could all work. There's a pickleball place in town where they have got a mess of the last couple of years. And so he still kept me in the loop on those conversations and has been appreciative of our work in spite of all the challenges going on. And so I'm going to share with him some thoughts about how he might turn things around. And then another chiropractor as well, where he's invited me to actually be like a coach with him and really working through all sorts of details about how he can make his business better. So it's just like I'm getting these relationships with people where it's pretty fun and interesting. And that's all within the last week. So some might say, man, how are you getting through all that stuff within a week? And for time's sake, I think I'm going to go into this later because it's a whole talk I can give that I'm very passionate about and has changed my life for the better. But basically, I have built such a good discipline with time blocking and daily planning. And time blocking is really just, we can show an example, but time blocking is really just you block as many things in the day as possible so that you're filling up all of your white space in the calendar. In the book Indistractable, they talk about this concept, and there's other books that talk about time blocking too, but you're basically just being crazy intentional with how you want to spend your time on a regular basis. And beyond that, what makes it all work well for me is every day I do a timeout to just plan how the day is going to go. Because without that timeout, things are going to start to fall apart. And I've seen that before because sometimes I slack. But it's been like 8 years of this. Me having this discipline with how I manage my time and my schedule and think ahead about things. And it's now to the point where I'd say I'm quite good at making the most out of my days. Not that I'm the best or the most maniacal person ever, because there's definitely examples of like, for instance, I could have been more disciplined and just like wake up Monday morning and just get in here to record the podcast. But that didn't happen, which is why I'm here and why that bookkeeper was surprised to see me this morning. At lunch, I could be working through lunches, but that's every lunch I'm like watching YouTube videos for fun. And I'm, with email, I'm pretty on top of emails, but that's because when an email comes in, I'm like clicking on it, reviewing it. And like, that's very much for people that are distraction hack, if time efficient people, they say like you give yourself dedicated times to deal with emails and then totally not look at them at other times. So there's all these little hacks and efficiencies that I like still don't prescribe to, but still, I mean, for where my life has gone, again, I'm very thankful to the Lord on like how it's gone because, and this is one of the biggest ways that it's happened is because of that, because there's time blocking and daily planning. So, that's why I can have a week like this, and every week since is going to be filled with all sorts of nuanced details and issues from these clients, business challenges. I mean, Monday I started with 2 burning fires from clients, just yesterday, and all this sorts of stuff that, you know, with a business owner, I talked about this last episode, but there's always something to do. So anyways, let's get into a little bit of the word because that's, you know, supposed to be part of these podcasts. So I'm supposed to get into the word. And so since fall last year until, you know, middle of the summer, I went from Acts all the way through Revelations. First time really reading through Revelations. And so now I'm going back into the Gospels, starting with Matthew. So for those of you who don't read the Bible, there's 4 chapters where it really covers Jesus's life on earth. And so that's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are 4 of the disciples that were with Jesus, 4 of the 12 disciples. And so Matthew's the first one in the order, not necessarily chronologically or anything like that, but just his account of being with Jesus. And I talk about disciplines that I've built up. I've built up a new discipline about how I read the word, where instead of just reading it and then moving on with my day, I will read it, highlight scriptures, pull out the scriptures from the Bible and put it onto a separate note sheet, and then spend time to think about what those scriptures mean for my life or how I'm interpreting them and all that kind of stuff. And so going back through the Gospels, something I've been very familiar with because I've grown up being a Christian. It is it's already been super nice for me to just have these timeouts to really digest what Jesus is talking about, what happens in these miracles in his life, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to go through some things through Matthew 1 through 5 that I think were some pretty interesting themes. First of all, in the first chapter is the genealogy chapter, which for a lot of times people gloss over because it's really boring or not helpful. But it's interesting to point out that, hey, you know, there's in the first in Matthew 1, it goes through the first few verses where it's just the genealogy of Jesus, where it starts from Abraham, and then it goes all the way down to David, and then David all the way down to when the Israelites are taken into captivity by Babylon. And then after being taken into captivity to Christ, it's 42 generations of people. And just, you know, the fact that you could have 42 generations all connected that has never been cut off through all these hundreds upon thousands of years, being kept alive in spite of all these catastrophes and troubles. I mean, that's just remarkable for sure. But, you know, beyond that, it's just, you know, this family lineage that's here. It's curious to me that this family lineage was important for him to pick, you know, because through all those details, you have some characters in the Bible that are just have very questionable backgrounds, you know, like Rahab, who lived most of her life as a prostitute, you know, or Bathsheba, who, you know, was David's wife, and David's whole scandal of basically killing off this wife's husband in war and then taking her as his bride because she was so attractive. Literally, because she was so attractive. She was bathing on top of a roof, and David saw her and was like, oh my God, I got to kill her husband. This is a simplification. You could read the story if you want in 2 Samuel, but yeah, to have the lineage go through this woman to end up being Solomon, wisest king in the Bible ever, and then having it go through all these different characters. It's just like God picks people to be part of a grand plan that is curious to folks. Like even David, my wife and I are going through 1st, 2nd Samuel. And just some of the things about David's life is like, really, this guy is famously a man after God's own heart, is what it's told in the Bible. And he's doing some crazy actions, that I can go and do later. But it's just like, man, he picks some really imperfect people, which is so hopeful for us as Christians because we know that we are very imperfect. So that was a very interesting takeaway. Another one is, Jesus has this ramp up in order to be launched into the ministry. I think that's very important to think about because, there's not a lot, but there's a decent bit about Jesus' life before he starts being a minister and healing people and, preaching good news and being the savior of the earth. Because first of all, he starts with this whole backstory of having parents that are obedient to the Lord. So if you think about how good or not Christians end up maintaining the faith or really having a great example in their life, there's a lot of Christians that start off with bad backgrounds that turn it around, but there's a lot of times where in the best households or the best generational families that they had backgrounds where there were parents that were not only good parents, but were also obedient to the Lord and leading the family. And that's what happened in Jesus' life. You have parents that are hearing from the Lord and obediently commit to marriage, even though, Mary is, pregnant prior to the marriage, and then listening to the Lord to escape and live kind of in exile over in Egypt for some years and then coming back home. And other kinds of examples where like they clearly led a good household, and beyond that, for Jesus' sake, you could tell that there was an obsession of early on of really having a higher calling on his life or higher aspiration of what he found was important, because you find moments where he's sitting in with priests in the Israelite faith where he's talking about the law and talking about everything written there and just has this heightened sense, intensity. You can tell this when you talk to a kid who's like really gotten into topics and educated and like is fascinated about things, that childlike fascination. Jesus had that for the law, where it was very clear early on that his meaning in life was not tied toward fame or worldly acclaim or selfish ambition or, he's later a carpenter and he doesn't take that to advantage, or like he's not trying to be this, capitalist warmongering person, which capitalism wasn't a thing back then, but, you get what I mean. He's not trying to get rich, He has this higher calling in his life that he's aspiring to, and especially because he knows where he's ending up. But he had a humble period of really dedicating himself to the Lord, almost as in like an irrelevant isolation period of like, again, he's not launched into ministry until he's 30. So he's got 30 years of like not being released by God. And it's only like 3 years of impact over these gospels that he is actually a minister. So it's like, he just accepted humbly being in the spot of not really having an influence and just working and building, meekly representing what it does look like for a lot of Christians to just live on the earth, But then God gives them a test of really seeing, hey, even the Son of God, is he going to be this representative that I can use on the earth? And so I think it's fascinating if you talk to enough Christians, like prior to them getting into ministry or callings like that, or where they end up going, there were tests in their life to see whether or not they would persist or be diligent in their faith, in spite of sins that they may have fallen short on themselves, or in spite of calamities that fall through their lives. Like, will they maintain faith that the Lord is going to take care of them? And Jesus does this with 40 days of being in the wilderness and then being tempted by Satan directly, And then once all that happens, he is released. So it's just like the first time I've really thinking about, like, I've never heard of any pastor like giving kind of like this blueprint of what happened in Jesus's life, prior to ministry, to prepare him for ministry. It's just, yeah. And there's some things that I'm like, you read through the word and you're never done. Like, you can keep going back through stuff and keep wrestling through new topics. But one of them is like, he starts in ministry, Jesus, and immediately he's doing signs and wonders, healing the sick, helping people with, lame injuries, and like visually restoring life to people physically. And so, and it's just everywhere Jesus goes, this is so much part of his life that he's doing signs and wonders, beyond just preaching and speaking and teaching. So it really makes you think that, like, as a Christian, this is not like a healthy thing to think about, but it's like, if this is so important to Jesus's ministry that all this stuff was happening, then, like, again, why do we see it so infrequently in the world? Why don't we see people being healed and all that kind of stuff just in our normal day-to-day lives? Maybe it's a consequence of myself and not being in environments where the Lord is active. And maybe this is a problem on my part that I need to change. Or maybe it's systemic of the environment in America, where a lot of people would consider the church being pretty dead, and its impact and positive influence, That's a whole other topic. But to just see that, like, hey, signs and wonders are so important to his ministry, it's like, how do I digest that, for myself as a Christian? Whenever I'm not healing people all the time, But yeah, there are other points, but you know what? Yeah, I don't know. It's just I've really very early on been excited about, like, what I've been able to pull from the word, especially in these gospels that I'm quite familiar with, because again, growing up in the Christian faith, so I will continue to share, what I'm reading through, what I'm digesting, all that kind of stuff. But before I let you go, I hope that you have a wonderful week. Thanks for hanging out. I was looking at the stats of the last video. I have like 18 views. So I don't know who these random people are because I didn't share it with anyone. And then there's like, what was the stat? It was like 7% of the 18 people actually watched the whole video. So what I did the math, it's like one person actually watched the whole video. So if that's you, Mom, thank you. I don't know who this one person is, but great. But yeah, no, we'll see if we can do a little better than that. But hey, have a great rest of your day and week, and I will see you next week.